Hello, everyone. Welcome on this new episode of Education Futures. Together we are with Chris Bush. Hello, Chris.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. A pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. You are a teacher in Australia, a school leader, and you became passionate about artificial intelligence in your job. And we would love to know what led you to this journey. Why did you become so passionate? Tell us more about you.
I think any teacher listening will have the sensation that I had as a teacher after 10 years, and even well before that time, that the work of a teacher is quite impossible. In Australia, we have 28 or 25 students in a class, and I know teachers in America might have 35 students. You really feel like you can never possibly help your students to the level that you need to. And so I've always been really interested in technological innovations that might make teaching and learning more effective. And for me, it was artificial intelligence, building chatbots that cloned myself so that I could be there for my students whenever they needed me. But unlike me, AI could speak every language. Unlike me, the AI was there at 2 a.m. when my students were revising for their tests and exams. And so for me, this seemed like we would say a no-brainer, an opportunity to implement some tech, design it with students, design it safely, induct them into it well, and in doing so, really improve the quality of teaching and learning in a way that simply hasn't been possible before AI.
Amazing. You built a chatbot called Mitch, if I'm not mistaken, that your student used. They asked more than 1,500 questions to that chatbot. Obviously, you would not have been able to answer that many questions, especially at
Well,
2 a.m.
That's right. And they asked those questions in one night. That was 47 students asking 1,500 questions in one evening the night before the exam. And eventually, because it records all the conversations and I can see them, at 3 a.m., a student asked, Mitch, nothing's going into my head. I'm panicking before the exam. What should I do? And what do you think the AI said to Mitch, or what it said to the child, or what would we like the AI to have
Go to
said?
sleep, right?
Exactly. The AI said, hey, get some rest. The best thing you can do is get some sleep. And in the morning, we can talk about economics. Now, the reason it responded like that is it was an AI that I designed to respond with empathy, with care. It was trained on the curriculum. It was told what to discuss was safe and what was not safe to discuss. And AIs, when we carefully design them, they adhere to their training. We've seen some shocking headlines about what happens when AI can be misused. But really, those people that are having these interactions with AI in a negative way, it's in a completely untrained version of these tools. When we take them and we design them safely, AI can provide this wonderful support that humans can never hope to provide to their students.
Hmm. Laurent, what does it inspire you? This the story of Mitch and the 1,500
Um,
questions asked.
I guess we would love to have more teachers trying to use AI for with their classrooms and for their classrooms, and that's one point of we are heading to the end of your report, but you wrote a great report about how AI can help Australia, and one of the points is like teachers should just try it, right? It's just teachers need to learn also about it, and trying it is just a good way to do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is a profoundly powerful and different technology that will take time to get used to. But testing and trialing and deciding what's right for our own classrooms is the best way to go. I think what's really successful is when we recognize that teachers are professionals and they can decide which part of AI might best help their students who they know so intimately and deeply about what would resonate and what won't work. They're the best kind of decisions we can make around AI. It'll be different for each context. I want to also share a story of a boy called Ahmed who was living in uh, a situation where he couldn't afford private tutoring for economics. Uh, Private tutoring in Australia is about 100 euros, 90 euros per hour. It's extremely expensive, and a lot of students studying economics can afford this, but not the students at my school. Ahmed told me the story that he would go home every evening and talk to Mitch, and he went from a 40% up to getting 80%, and now Ahmed is studying economics at university. And I saw him the other day, and he really attributes this growth and then him studying his self-belief in being able to study this course to this AI. Now, I knew that Ahmed was struggling, but Ahmed was one of 50 students for me. And so I simply couldn't give him the time that he needed to see that learning gain. And I think so many classrooms around the world are like this, where it's not through a lack of teachers' love and care and energy that they're not able to help their students. It's simply that the system is designed in a way that we can't possibly ever help our students as much as we would like to.
Absolutely. And what I love about your work and the report that you just published, it's about equitable AI and how to avoid creating a wider gap between students who can afford private tutoring, who have wealthy parents who take care of that, and students who simply cannot afford it. And that's what I loved about your report. So if you could tell our listeners a bit more about this report and the Churchill Fellowship, because you were a fellow, and during that time you wrote that report. Tell us more about the fellowship. How did you came about being a fellow? How do we become a Churchill Fellow? For those who might be interested for the next cohorts, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So Churchill Fellowships are open to citizens in Australia, in England, and I think in Canada as well. Might be New Zealand, but it was a charitable trust set up after World War II in Winston Churchill's name as a legacy for him, and it empowers ordinary citizens to go overseas and learn something extraordinary, and then to bring that knowledge back to Australia. So my proposal to the trust to become a fellow was, I need to see what's happening around the world with AI. What are other countries doing with AI that could improve student outcomes? And then I promised that I will bring that knowledge back to Australia. And so I've published this report of what I saw, and people can find that online, and we'll probably share the link in the description. And I suppose what I saw, though, is what's being reflected in a great report by Microsoft published just the other day about AI usage. AI usage is predominantly in rich Western English-speaking countries, or in like high wealth nations. There's an enormous disparity between the global north and the global south in who is having access to AI tools. If we zoom in, and that is an enormous equity problem as well. When we zoom into countries of wealth, we see that private schools or schools with the resources, with the means, they are leaping ahead with AI, whereas underfunded government schools, and Australia, we educate more kids privately than almost any other country on earth. We have 40% of our students in private schools and only 60 in government schools. We see these private school students getting this extra boost from access to AI tools, access to AI literacy, whilst students and teachers in public schools wait for government direction. And so it's widening those gaps within nations with AI. But then I think we need to zoom out and look at the more challenging global picture, where we see this enormous disparity between the countries with means and those without.
Hmm.
What kind of AI tools are you talking about? Because like ChatGPT is free, like there is a free version that anyone can use. So
Mm.
why would you consider that some countries or schools don't have access to? Are you talking about specific AI tools for schools, or?
Yeah, well, and I suppose a few things on this that we know that ChatGPT, if you have a free version, you'll be given a certain number of messages per day, but then it will stop working. We also know that the paid version is a far more profoundly powerful learning partner or assistant, however you wish to use AI. The paid version for $20 a month is
Yeah.
profoundly different to the free version. And so there's that disparity as well. And I think it's not just access to like school-based AI tools. It's access to really high-quality AI that's been carefully designed. And I was talking about this to the professor of ethics at Yale University, Professor Faridi, who wrote the EU's, one of the key authors of the EU's AI Act. He said that the situation he sees developing is that rich schools will gather and garner the best AI, the strongest AI, and they will use that to augment their amazing teachers, whereas poorer schools will be left using poorer AI, sort of off the shelf, less profound, and that in itself is also another equity problem that we need to have means to be addressing.
Absolutely, because just telling your students to use the free model of ChatGPT won't do it, because it's if you don't train them about AI literacy, what it means to use these tools, that they can hallucinate sometimes, that they're not always right, they're not, and the free version of ChatGPT might not be trained as Chris, you just said you trained your AI tutor to be to act with care and benevolence, and so there is this divide in terms of the quality of AI tools that these students have access to.
Yeah, and also my AI was trained on learning science, so we know there are particularly effective ways to teach and to learn, and we can train the AI on those. But a ChatGPT off the shelf is not going to offer that customization. Mm.
Mhm,
And,
mhm.
and and maybe another part of the answer could be on the infrastructure. Maybe if the AI tool is available, but you don't have, I don't know, like network or computer at school, like you won't have access to it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to try and pull up the report from Microsoft, but it talks about the number of people around the world living in places without stable electricity, let alone stable internet, let alone internet at a bandwidth that allows you to run these really powerful AI applications. Because really soon, AI is going to make that jump. At the moment, it's kind of text to text a lot of the time, and that's okay. But really quickly, it's going to become voice to voice, video to video, and the sort of networks that you need to run those tools. And those are going to be dramatic changes to teaching and learning, where every child has an avatar that can see what they see, that can hear what they hear. They can have a back and forth with them. It's a personalized tutor that'll be trained on their entire schooling and be deeply attuned to their learning goals. That's going to require a lot of infrastructure. You're right, and many people around the world simply don't even have internet at the moment.
Absolutely. Let's go to the rest of the world, because you did quite a world tour, and it resonated a lot with me, because I also did an edtech world tour back in the days, and I traveled to more than 20 countries to have a look at education technology adoption across the globe before the AI wave came about. But I'm thinking about going back on that traveling track, to be closer to innovators across the globe. So you did that too, and you went to the US, you went to Europe, and so I'd love to know more about your experience. What was, some of the wow, the initiatives where you had this wow effect? Okay, I did not
Yeah,
expect
yeah,
this. This is
definitely.
amazing.
I suppose what I saw was a patchwork approach being rolled out across America. So some states are really jumping ahead with a really well-defined policy on AI. States like Illinois with Chicago and Colorado, North Carolina. One of the wow moments for me would be visiting the Alpha School in Austin, Texas. And the Alpha School has been publicized a lot in recent weeks and months. People are very interested about this school. We could talk about it all evening, but when I spoke to students there, I asked them what it was like from their point of view. What was their feeling to be learning from a personalized AI tutor? They have no teachers at this Alpha School. There are humans there, adults, but they are guides. They're not trained in pedagogy and learning. So the students really are learning with an AI. And so I was really surprised that the students told me that they preferred learning this way. They reflected that their old schools, before they came to the Alpha School, there were too many students. The classes were too slow, too fast. They could never get access to their teachers, or classes were disrupted by students who were disengaged. And they said that for them, being able to learn at their pace, at their own rate, with AI helping them every step of the way, was a real positive for them. And so that for me was a shock, because I suppose I expected students to say that they missed those relationships with their teachers more. But their comment on schooling was probably what my feeling as a teacher is that it's not going terribly well out there. That classrooms around the world, students are distracted, disengaged, disrupted. That learning is a positive experience for some students, but not for a huge majority. So that was a big moment for me.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe we can also precise that they select the students a lot at this school, and that this answer comes from students who were selected because they are high IQ, high like educational level, etc. And like it works for them. Does it work for anyone?
Exactly. And I think they are saying they are expanding their model to a much less privileged school in Chicago, and they're looking to see if their model can be effective for less self-motivated learners. I'll be really interested to see if that happens. But also what these students do, they have their boring, let's say the boring curriculum wired in really quickly in a 2-hour period. And then in the afternoon, they get to work on fantastic project-based learning where they're designing a community group or a fashion label or starting a band. Now, this is exciting learning. This is what we would dream schools to be, that we can have passion and project and interest-based learning. But we just don't do that in the factory farming industrialized model. So I think what Alpha School is getting right, for me, is a belief that project-based learning connected to student interests, that is the way forward with education.
Interesting. And what did you learn in Chicago? I know that you worked a lot about the Chicago public schools in your report, that they developed some sort of guidebook. Is that a best practice? Tell us more.
Chicago is one of America's, I think it's their 4th largest educational system, which means it's one of America's largest and therefore sort of one of the world's largest educational systems. They have treated their teachers as professionals. And that was a common thread throughout all the places I visited. When we treat teachers as professionals and we give them protected time to upskill them, to train them, we don't just expect them to learn a new skill in a 60-minute meeting on a Tuesday afternoon with everything else going on. Chicago really carved out protected time to train teachers over a sustained period, to give them micro-credentialing opportunities, to give them opportunities to share their ideas in communities of practice, to test and to try and to iterate. And they also involve the teachers in the design and the implementation of this guidebook with a lot of suggestions of what teachers can do, should do, rules, suggestions rather than rules. And that was a common thread also, that systems where they're giving their teachers flexibility to play within guidelines, that was a more successful option. Again, those places are trusting teachers to be able to make informed judgments that will suit the students in their context.
What you saw in the US, going state by state, is exactly what's happening also in Australia, where you're from. You have different states, and different states operate their own educational system. So, what do you think when one state like Chicago or Victoria is launching something new? Isn't that creating some sort of inequality in between states?
Absolutely, it is. And this is happening in Germany as well. I was speaking to some educators in Berlin. I think they have 12 systems, and I'm curious what's happening in France as well. Do you have state-based system there?
No,
Or?
no, it's
Very
something.
centralized.
And look, and the centralized system is very successful in places like China, where every student is getting 8 hours of AI education. That's 260 million primary school and high school students getting 8 hours of AI literacy this year. Similar in Estonia, a small country, sure, but a centralized educational body. We are seeing educational disparity in Australia and America and Canada because in Victoria, my state, you can cross a river and you get to New South Wales. If you're a student in New South Wales, you have access to a government-designed AI tutor for all of your subjects, and your teachers have access to that too. You can access that day or night. And if you cross the river in Victoria, you have no such access to these technologies. And so it's terrible then as we see this patchwork approach causing educational disadvantage, which if it stays like this for much longer, and it's already happened for, say, 12 months, 18 months, if that grows over a few more years, we see students' educational opportunities and therefore their access to university and their life pathways be diminished for students that haven't had access to these tools. And so it's a crisis that's unfolding right now and will have consequences very immediately.
Hmm.
I have a question actually for both of you. Just stepping back to the organization of such a world tour, how do you pick the places you want to visit? Because you selected like the US obviously, but inside the US, how do you pick like Canada, UK, Finland? How do you choose all of that?
It'll shock you to learn that I actually used AI to help me to choose where I should go and who I should talk to. So using perplexity a bit, because it is so hard, especially with an emerging technology, to find the places that are doing good work with AI and worthy of a visit, or the right places to visit. And you have to sort of plan your itinerary a fair about 12 months ahead of time. And so by the time I had my trip planned through the States, Canada, England, and Finland, it actually really emerged that perhaps I should have been spending some time in China, in Singapore, in India, in South Korea, where they have AI textbooks, in Singapore, where they have AI maths tutors. There are other countries that are really taking far more profound and confident steps, recognizing that the world has changed and therefore education needs to change. But it was challenging to find the who and where to visit.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. In my days, I didn't have access to an AI to help me, but I just basically checked who was influential in these topics on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I followed some thought leaders in education technology across the globe, and when I went to Australia, to New Zealand, I had identified 5 or 6 thought leaders like Stephen Harris that we have in common, Chris, that you know very well as well. And I met him, and then he told me you should meet this person and this person and this person. And so I found myself, being for 3 weeks to a month in each country, and that helped a lot because when I arrived, I met these 5 thought leaders, and they introduced me to tons of amazing people afterwards. So that was my technique, but it's more time intensive because you need to have a bit of a buffer between the time you arrive and you meet these people and the time you have left to meet others.
I think you're so right. And also, going to some conferences at the start was a fantastic way to meet other people, and then for them to tell you that you should visit someone or see someone. So if anyone is embarking on a fellowship, I'd say start with a conference. But I also want to call out the Oxford University and Sarah Ratner's AI community of practice. They have 2,000 educators from over 110 countries that are collaborating on AI in education. And we had our inaugural meeting in person of the community of practice in Oxford in September. It was a pleasure to speak to my colleagues and to connect with peers, and to recognize that whilst sometimes when we're in our own countries, you can feel like we're doing a bit of this work in isolation, there is an amazing network of really future thinking educators around the world who are grappling with these same problems, and we can work and learn and share with each other in a really powerful way. And
That's
so Sarah's done an amazing job in setting up this group, and anyone can join. If you're an educator in AI, it's on LinkedIn. You'll be able to find this AI community of practice with Oxford University.
amazing. Chris, can you introduce us to Sarah? We would love to have her on the podcast.
Yeah, I was thinking that she'd be a fantastic person to speak to you as well. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. What about the rest of Europe? I saw that you went to Finland, to Estonia. What did you see there?
Yeah, and so Finland, I suppose, is always chosen by people as being this the pinnacle of sort of educational prosperity, right? That students in Finland do well. And what I discovered in Finland was actually that that there's many reasons that the students do well in Finland, but people I spoke to in Finland put it down to it's a homogenous learning experience. So no matter what school you go to, you will get an amazing lunch, you will get an amazing set of classrooms, you will have teachers that are well remunerated and well trained, you'll have access to all the services that you need to do really well. So there's not this disparity in educational experience that we see in places like Australia, and perhaps do you see that disparity in France as well between the kind of the students that can afford? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also in Finland, you have a very homogeneous population. Let's not forget that, in France, I don't know about Australia, we have a very heterogeneous population, people coming from different places. And so it's not the same culture, in Finland. Everyone has the same ancestors, if I may say so. So basically, it might be a bit easier to form this very harmonious educational system in a country with this type of homogeneity. What do you think?
I want to push back on that a little bit, because I think that I think you're right that Finland is not as ethnically diverse as France or Australia, but their schools are well funded, and schools in Australia are underfunded by design. This is well known that schools are not having enough funding, and it's been like this for decades. And so schools do not have the amount of money to provide the services that students need to thrive at school. I suspect that if a student in Finland is having challenges with engagement engaging in learning or having problems at home, that the schools and the community have the right amount of money and resources to help those students to engage in school in a more productive fashion. And I think that's what they're getting right, that they have the help that students need to reach their ultimate educational attainment. But what we're seeing in Australia is a lot of stranded brilliance. And Dwayne Matthews out of Canada talks about this, that our educational systems by design are leaving so many children's brilliance undiscovered or unfulfilled by the way that we push students through school, or we don't help them when they need our help. So Finland is perhaps falling behind even a country, their neighbour Estonia, in terms of their PISA scores. Estonia is a country that's really been previously with the internet and now with AI, really recognizing that this is a huge moment and an important one for our curriculum and our culture and our systems to adapt to. And Estonia is preparing their students and teachers by the tens of thousands to be AI fluent, not just AI literate, so that they can prosper in a global marketplace. My experience in Finland was that they are actually being quite slow to adapt to AI, to have that filtering down into schools, because they've been doing the same thing for so long. They've been doing it well, and it's been getting results. But now the game has changed, and so Finland, I think, like England and like Australia and America, there's a lot of inertia to change a system that has been working, some people would say. Working for who? I would push back, but a reluctance to adjust.
Fascinating. And when we read your report, what we saw when reading your report is that there are some pillars that came, that's some real pillars that were discovered during your report. You say we need to prepare our teachers better. We need to transform the curriculum. We need to elevate student voice, and we need to ensure ethical use of AI. Is there one thing, one big pillar in your report that is missing from these four?
Mm. I think you've chosen the four that most resonate for me, but I just want to pull out student voice, because I think when we listen and we ask and we provide the space for our students to speak about their educational experience, they will tell us everything that we need to know. They will tell us that school is boring, that it is disconnected to their interests, that their level of climate anxiety and worry about the future feels so much more profound than the busy work that we expect of them in schools. So we can wonder why students are disinterested and disengaged with school, but really they are crying out for the system to be different, and one that actually aligns with their understanding of the world. So for me, the most important thing we must do is talk to our students, whether that's a teacher about inquiring about why they're using AI, whether that's a school administrator wondering why student attendance is down, conversations with our young people. And in my role as head of student voice at one of Victoria's largest secondary schools, talking to students is the only way forward. Yeah.
But how can we get that student voice up to policymakers, to those
Yes,
who
this is.
decide? Because it's amazing. Your role is incredibly important, but
Mm,
how can we
mm.
make change happen?
And Colorado did this. So Colorado in America, their AI policy is great. The reason they did this was they were able to get in the room with their state education minister, students and parents and teachers who were able to tell the education minister what it's actually like in schools. The belief of AI for Education, a fantastic not-for-profit in the US, is that policymakers and politicians are so far removed from the experience of schooling that they really need young people and parents to come in and say, hey, we're demanding that our education needs to change, because at the moment, what we're doing is a waste of time. We are really not preparing our young people to thrive in the world as it is now. And so we're demanding, as voting members of the public, that you change what's being asked of teachers, what teachers are expected to know and to do, and what schools are expected to nurture. We need to help politicians to recognize that the situation in schools is a crisis, and to continue in business as usual is madness.
Absolutely. Do we
And
have
what do
that,
you think?
Laurent? Do we have
Sorry?
that in France as well? The student voice coordinator. I mean, are students heard in our country?
I think the point of crisis is a worldwide issue of adults not listening to young people. But
Absolutely.
um, I guess we have in every school. How do you say delegate in English? Like
Like a
Delegate?
delegate.
elected students.
Oh yeah, delegates, the one that is one student that is responsible for the voice of most
Yeah,
of
and
the
in
students.
high schools, you always have that kind of students who are elected to represent the students. But and I think a lot of initiative like that exist all around the place. But I'm not sure that students are really listened with those projects. But I had a question. You talked about underfunded schools and underfunded school system. How do you think AI is supposed to impact that? Do you think like policymakers should invest more money in AI and that the overall system is going to be better but cost more? Or do you think there is an opportunity for a better optimization of the funds? But if that's the case, like we still need to pay a bit for this AI. So where should we decrease the amount of money that would pay for all those AIs? AI tools, but AI training and like all of what you told us about.
Yeah. Uh, Actually, if we funded schools properly, would we need AI so much in them? If a teacher was only responsible for 7 or 8 students instead of 28 students, would we need the solution that AI provides? I think AI can still and will be a profound change to education, but the heightened need for it perhaps wouldn't be as strong if schools were not so threadbare and not so underfunded. Uh, so that's one aside. To fund AI and to fund education appropriately shouldn't be a debate. If we don't fund schools appropriately, then people's life outcomes are diminished. So for me, it should be no discussion. We should be paying as much to high quality public education as we absolutely should, because it's an investment in our citizens for their life. Should that
Right.
funding include cutting edge AI programs and support for teachers and students? Absolutely. But really, we should be making sure schools have enough psychologists, that students are warm, or the classrooms in Australia are often not air conditioned. And we have days here where it's 42 degrees and our students are too hot to learn. We should be getting lots of these things right in our public schools before, as well as considering how AI can improve the experience. Did that get to your question, or is there more?
Yes, but I would love to change it a bit more, because like all over the world, like education system costs 5% of GDP in a country on average, for one teacher for 25 students. If we go to one teacher for 7 or 8 students, which would be a dream, probably that it will cost like 20% of GDP or something like that. So I'm not sure we are at an era where public funding is going to explode.
Yeah.
All over the
Oh,
world, we see that public
yeah.
funding is trying to decrease. In France, in the US, I'm not a specialist of Australia, but I would be surprised if it were different. So my point is still like education. Yeah, obviously, states should spend more money in education, but they're not going to do it, right? Not significantly. So my point is, could AI be a solution to this issue, this monetary issue?
Yeah, and look, I'm an economics teacher, so you're talking about opportunity cost, and you're talking about the choices that we could make. We could cut defense spending, we could fund schools appropriately, we could tax tech companies and
Yeah,
mining companies to appropriately fund
yeah.
public schools and hospitals. But can AI be a low cost solution for the world that we find ourselves in? Absolutely. And I think safely designed, carefully designed chatbots by educators that are appropriate for their context, that is a real win that this technology has provided. That for say $18 a month, a teacher can subscribe to a platform that gives their students 24/7 support. That simply has not been available in the world until very recently. And yes, with our disparity widening, with schools underfunded, AI can really help. Yeah.
Hmm. I would love to go back to the big picture, because you're asking a pretty philosophical question in your report, what is school for in the age of AI? So
Yeah.
if we take a step back and we look at what is school for and the future of schools, of education, let's have our foresight hat on and think about what's next. How would you answer that question that you're asking? What is school for in the age of AI?
And this is a question that I love asking to audiences because everyone has an opinion. And so is it okay that I put it back on to you first? Because I talk about this all the time. But so what is, maybe not even what the purpose of school in an age of, excuse me, AI, but what is the purpose of school? What would you both say to that?
I would answer to enlighten kids and make them like citizens that are that well in their bodies, in their minds, that are aware of the challenges of this world, and that are well equipped for this world. That know basic skills of literacy and numeracy and history and geography and all these very important topics, but these kids should also get prepared to the world we live in with other types of skills like critical thinking, philosophy, and how to think. Because I think this is the most at risk skill that we see today is how to think and the capacity to think for oneself. And this should be the purpose of school and education, is to teach kids how to think, and also the social aspect. I think the social aspect is absolutely fundamental because yes, you can learn with your AI tutor, personalized tutor, but if you don't see anyone during the day and you're alone with your AI tutor, I mean, it's not a world that I wish to see. Laurent, what do you think?
I have nothing to add to what you just said, but I think we should see our view on what is school for evolving regarding the evolution of the challenges we imagine the next generation is going to face. So let's say global warming is something we see, and we have to keep in mind global warming while we are preparing kids. And that means collaboration, because we are facing a world where countries can't collaborate on a big issue like this one. And it should also evolve with the tools we have. And AI is both a challenge and a tool for the next generation. so I totally agree on the fact that we should ask this question again. So what is cool for in the age of AI? And just a footnote: we are doing this podcast because we don't have this answer, and we want this answer. So
Yes.
so that's exactly the
Absolutely.
question we ask on a regular basis in this podcast.
I think both of your answers are wonderful, and it could maybe be encapsulated by a word that Valerie Hannon, who's from the UK, has made very popular: to thrive. That we want our young people to thrive. We want our communities and our countries and our world to thrive. And what we're currently focused on in education largely is rote learning of facts and figures that once people leave school, if they're ever required again, might be searched online. But we are not focusing on skills in schools. We're not focusing on socialization. We're not focusing on critical thinking. But we could. But in order to do that, we must free our teachers up from the tyranny of these curriculum and this content that we expect them to impart into young minds. If we remove some of those curriculum requirements and we say there are some core things you need to learn, but we're more interested in developing your skills so that you can thrive in a changed and changing world, then teachers are the best placed adults to do this work. They are trusted adults in young people's lives. And so for me, it's about a radical reimagining of what we are spending our precious time with students in school.
Absolutely. And another fact is that we don't know which jobs they're going to do and to occupy when they're older. So it's always fascinating to me that we still also in higher education teach for a specific job that might not exist anymore or that might completely change. So we should also teach like metacognition skills. We had a great podcast with a neuroscientist and we talked a lot about learning how to learn as a critical skill nowadays, because learning is going to be lifelong. It's going to be,
Yeah.
part of our everyday life.
And perfect.
And that's
Yeah.
not something we teach.
And Professor Kukarova at the University College London, he talks about developing human power skills. Human power skills are what's going to hold us in good stead, and they are critical thinking, empathy, communication, critical thinking. These will prepare our students for a world that is changed by AI. Because whether we like it or not, AI is here and it is shaping the world of work. McKinsey has just published a report saying the overwhelming majority of businesses are using AI. It's becoming an expectation that employees will have AI literacy. That's as things stand now. If we look down 10, 15, 20 years down the track, it's actually really unclear how many of these white-collar jobs that we prepare our students for, we see lawyers and accountants and consultants as like the goal of schooling. How many of those jobs will exist? There will be some humans, of course, but they'll probably be controlling AI agents that are doing the work of entire teams or entire even cities, is what, OpenAI's stated aim is, that they will have AIs able to do the work of whole countries. So what are our young people, what are our citizens doing in this world? They are caring for each other. They are building things, making, creating, building community. These are not things that we focus on in schools. There may be things that we focus on in after-school clubs or sometimes or one day of the year, but they're going to, if the world shifts as people are predicting it might, we're going to need to learn how to prepare our young people for a very different planet.
Yeah, and all of that depends on how AI actually evolves. So there were this gap with GPT 3.5 where a student can have a personal tutor and interact with it in natural language. Are you focusing on new AI increments, or are you trying to spot some new innovation in AI that could change the game for schools?
I think a few things. There's a guy called Ethan Mollick, who's a professor of entrepreneurship at the Wharton School, and I'd really advise people to follow him because he's very clear-eyed about the reality that we find ourselves in. But he talks about the amount of time that it's going to take for the current AI abilities to filter down through society. Because as OpenAI said just on the other day, 6th of November, the gap between how most people are using AI and what AI is presently capable of is immense. Most people are using it as a chatbot. That is amazing. However, AI agents, which are already there, are profoundly more powerful than what most people are harnessing. So even if the AI only makes another little jump, for the effects of agents to filter down into our workplaces, into our schools, will take a long time, but it will happen because there's an economic imperative for it to happen.
Absolutely. And I would love to ask you, how positive or confident are you that we will see some changes happen in our school systems to answer that what school is for question, that we brilliantly answered, the three of us. How confident and positive are you that policymakers will make the necessary shifts and changes for us to get there?
Yeah, I'm not confident because I think education has been extremely good at resisting change. School today looks very similar to school 150 years ago, except the kids have laptops. They're still sitting in rows. They're still doing boring research tasks. Education has been really unable to foster a shift. But sadly, what might cause that shift is this economic catastrophe of millions of people finding themselves structurally unemployed, with people in our economy who previously have had their welfare and their livelihood protected by their reality. They are knowledge workers, that they have been able to become lawyers or consultants. These people are going to find themselves without work. And at this point in time, maybe communities say, goodness me, we need to radically reimagine what we're doing in schools because we're preparing students for jobs that have disappeared. And that is madness. So what are we preparing them for instead? But sadly, for this kind of shudder to happen, will require, I think, a catastrophe in terms of our economic system that we've come to know and many people to succeed in will be eroded and shift.
Well, I do
I kind
hope
of agree.
that policymakers in Australia read your brilliant report, Chris, and that they hire you at the Ministry of Education.
I'm
I
hoping
agree
to,
that.
hoping to keep speaking to people in the right places and try and move the needle. Yeah, sorry, Laurent, what were you going to say?
No, I was just saying that I agree that many questions we ask right now, like what is school for, this question exists for 100 years, and my hope is actually that because of AI, people are going to change, and a lot of things, because it might be the shock that we needed, but most of the things we would change should have changed 50 years ago, but but that's just a hope.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think it becomes it is becoming hard to deny the impact of climate change because people are now starting to see the weather change in their city or the presence of extreme storms. And so maybe these catastrophes are making people's climate denialism sort of shift. Maybe in a similar fashion, if we see unemployment start to rise when firms lay off white-collar workers, then we start to see politicians reevaluate what it is we're focusing on in our skills and training in our economies. But I wish it didn't have to get to a point of catastrophe and mass disadvantage for the system to wake up. Mm.
Hmm. Coming back to you, what would be your last advice for teachers? How can they do something similar that you did with Mitch? I mean, is this something that is accessible to the vast majority of teachers? Will you create a playbook for them
Yeah.
to follow?
So a few things. So, as a teacher in this current moment, you are maybe feeling that it is all too much, that it's all too overwhelming, that you're tired and you're burdened with so many the requirements of teaching. But the thing that AI will never replace is the actual role of teachers. It has never been about the knowledge transmission. It has been about the love and the nurturing and the care, and for those conversations we have with young people when they are deep in the woods of adolescence, and we help them discover their path out and their path forward. That is the real work of the teacher. That is the special thing that we get to do each day. And hopefully in the world of AI, we have the professional vulnerability to say, yeah, a chatbot can teach you some of that knowledge transmission, which is really hard to me to do for 1 to 28 students. But I'm going to be here for the really important stuff, the human development, the becoming a good citizen, becoming a good person, keeping you safe and well. And so for teachers, if they want to build a digital twin, the platform that I really recommend is called PlayLab, and they're a not-for-profit based out of the US, built by teachers for teachers, very affordable, very safe in terms of data, very easy for kids to use. And I have a playbook, an AI playbook, and people can access that by going to my website, chrisbushay.com, and it'll prompt you to enter your email, and you'll be given the link to that playbook. So people around the world have done a lot of thinking about AI. I've been lucky enough to go around like a little bird and pick things up and put them into my nest. And now I'm looking forward to sharing that nest or letting other people land in that nest, and they can use AI in similar ways that leading educators around the world are.
Beautiful. I love that metaphor of a nest, Chris. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. We will put all of these resources in the episode notes so you can just click on it and access them. Thank you so much for being with us today, Chris. One last question that I almost forgot. Who should we invite next on the Education Futures podcast?
Yeah, I think I've mentioned some amazing people like Dr. Sarah Ratner from Oxford University, Dr. Valerie Hannon, who wrote that book Thrive that I mentioned. I think that would be two amazing people. And Amanda Bickerstaff, she's leading incredible work across the US in transforming, I think they're up to like 20 states now that they've worked with to completely reimagine AI policy and getting politicians on board. And what an amazing impact she is having on millions and millions of educators and
we will
students.
have her COO, Corey, on our podcast next week. So one of the next episode is
Fantastic.
going to be with Corey from AI for Education.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, really, really good people. So I hope those three names are helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Chris.
so much,
Thank you
Chris.
for being with us
Yeah.
today.
Actually, the other name I might mention, when I was in Finland, I went to a school in Turku, and there was a principal of a school that started in the year 1276. This school is 750 years old, and the principal, Marianne, and I'll send you her name so you can invite her to the podcast. She talks about being a steward for the age of AI, and all the previous principals were the stewards of their age. And so she really, even though she's in charge of this ancient school, is very very interested in how she can prepare her teachers and students for the world that we find ourselves in. And I think that's brave. That's brave to be in charge of such an old institution, but to be saying we need to do things differently. The world has shifted.
Absolutely, we would love to meet her. Please send us her name and contact. Thank you so much, Chris, for all these wonderful ideas and for making so many things happen. And for this beautiful report that we will put in the notes as well. And that's how we discovered you. We're very happy that we did. Thank you so much for being with us today.
A pleasure. Thanks for the
Thank you.
conversation.